Welcome to Someone Talks, the official podcast of the National D-Day Memorial, where leading experts spill all the secrets of the Second World War. With your host, Dr. John C. McManus.
Greetings. Welcome to Someone Talked. I'm your host, Dr. John C. McManus from Missouri S&T. Alongside, as always, are my good friends from the National D-Day Memorial Foundation, April Cheek Messier, John Long, and also Angela Lynch. And the reason we have all three of you along is that this is our 100th episode. This is very special. You heard, of course, the new musical theme, and you hear the air horn.
I think that was supposed to be a party horn.
I mean, is that class or what, to celebrate with an air horn?
It sounds more like our train by the studio.
Special interpretation on the train. I mean, it's just really amazing to reflect and think that this, we've been doing this many episodes, up to 100 now, and still going strong. And of course, it also brings to mind, the memorial's been around 25 years, so we're stacking up some time here, aren't we?
It's hard to believe, 25 years.
It is. Yeah. But 100 episodes is really a feather in our cap, because, and I did some research on, podcasts and their popularity to write one of the grants that really got this thing started. And a lot of podcasts don't survive 3 or 4 episodes, because people realize it's not easy to do a podcast.
No.
But we're 100 episodes in, still going strong and still having fun.
Yeah. And there's still so much more to talk about.
There is. And I will mention, when we say 100 episodes, the viewers might say, well, I'm looking at it and it looks like you're over 100. But when we say 100, that is brand new, fresh. These aren't re-releases. That's 100 episodes that we've recorded, fresh, new content. So that's what we're looking at.
And darn good content, too. We've had some of the world leading experts on World War II.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's it's brand new scholarship in a way. Obviously they're discussing a lot of their latest work, but just in terms of how the sausage is made too, each of these episodes, Angela has to line up the guests, figure out the scheduling, work out all sorts of procedural stuff, and keep us heading in the right direction. Woody Watts in our studio has to make sure that everything works correctly, technologically and otherwise, in addition to dealing with the trains. John Long, preparing questions so that we have good conversations. And of course, April keeps it all running, as she does with everything, as an incredible leader. So it's one of the reasons why this works so well, I think.
It's a great team effort. It really is. I'm very proud of everything we've done. 100 episodes, hard to believe, but it's really terrific to be able to bring in the speakers, the different guests that we bring in to open up the lens on not only the history, but also with our guest today, this important topic of how something as monumental as the National D-Day Memorial got built and the inspiration behind it. So it's fun bringing all these topics to the fore and letting our guests know about that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Let me throw in also, did you check out that new theme music? For
yes.
our 100th episode? Isn't that cool?
I do want to. I think we should definitely mention that.
Our theme song from the beginning has been "It's a Military Secret" by the Glenn Miller Orchestra, and it's kind of a little subtle joke about we're spilling all the secrets of the Second World War, and this is a kind of revamped version of it. But the really cool thing, the announcer there, that's Glenn Miller, sort of course.
We should probably clarify that a little.
A little AI magic making Glenn Miller announce our show for us now. So,
and props to Woody on that, because I send him like ridiculous ideas sometimes, and he's like, "Yeah, we can do that." I'm like, "Oh, so it wasn't so ridiculous." So, it's funny using something artificial to create something that sounds authentic, but that's what we did.
That's all right. I love it. Yeah. I love it. Nice touch. So,
and you'll hear him again at the end.
Yeah, and I was, it's probably going to shock you to find out I was really just, these history geek teenagers.
Really?
Back in the 80s.
I need corroboration of that.
I was, all my friends were riding around listening to Madonna and Michael Jackson. I had Glenn Miller on. So it's for me just I love hearing that kind of music, and having Glenn Miller actually in the studio with us announcing things. Sort of.
I think that I think once kids, I'll never forget many years of doing education programs. I would always end up playing a Glenn Miller song at the end, and I would always tell the kids, "You're getting ready to listen to some 1940s music. I'm going to play a little Glenn Miller," and they would all groan and grunt and great. And by the time at the end of it, they loved it. I mean, most of them were like, "Well, that was a cool song. What was that?" And so, it's about introducing. Students to something different that maybe they hadn't heard before. So.
And a lot of times I think they probably recognize it, but they don't realize
that's right
who it is. Yeah.
The era.
Because the sounds are very recognizable.
Well, maybe we should jump into our guest because we have so many questions and I think there's a lot to talk about, shall we?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited because our next guest I have known for many, many years, all of those 25 years ago when I started at the memorial. He was running around with his hair on fire trying to take care of and build this amazing monument to the National D-Day Memorial. And Byron Dickson is with us today. He is the president of Dickson Architects and Associates of Roanoke, Virginia. He actually graduated from the University of Virginia School of Architecture and served in the armed forces during the Vietnam conflict. And he has just an amazing amount of experience and got to know the veterans personally. And he's going to talk a little bit to us today about how that inspired him. And it was his work, he laid the groundwork that eventually led to the design and the build of the National D-Day Memorial. And we are just so happy to have him here today. And Byron, let's see, you've been practicing how many years?
The firm has been in existence 56 years
56
now.
years.
This is our 56th year. Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Actually, I had, of course, my architectural education, my apprenticeship period prior to exam. And then after I was licensed, I worked for about 3 years moving around among architects, thinking somewhere there was the Rosetta Stone, but I never found it. I just sort of had to jump in. I had $315 in the bank in 1971, and I hung a shingle out. I was moonlighting, and we were allowed to moonlight in the office I was working in as long as it didn't interfere with the company business. And it didn't take long for my after hours efforts to exceed the company's interests. So I did the right thing and told them it was in the best interest of both of us as I moved on out and hung my own shingle. And they were very supportive, and they all were very close friends of mine until today. Some I've lost track of. I'm sure, hopefully they're still alive, but anyway. Well, many of them have left, but
well, and tell us a little bit. So you were in Roanoke, and I would imagine, over the years got to know a number of veterans living in Roanoke. Tell us the story of how things started for you in terms of meeting Bob Slaughter and this kind of early journey of this idea about a national monument.
Well, my experience didn't go back to the very beginning. The very beginning, as you know, started in, I guess, was Bob's backyard at a barbecue.
Right.
But about 3 or 4 months after that, one of the people that was at the barbecue was a neighbor of Bob's, which was Stetson. He was with a gentleman with the newspaper, and he managed to sometime in the weeks or months after that barbecue, he obtained permission to write a short article for the local section of the newspaper. That's back when the newspaper had 3 sections, international, local, and sports. But today it's a whole different game, of course. But anyway, he did get an article. It was about a 2-column probably 6-8 inches high on the first page of the local section. I can't remember the day or the exact date. I could find that. I've got the copy of the letter somewhere, but I read it, and I've always been a history buff, and particularly wartime has always been of interest. My service, likewise, in the military. I was in the Army for 4 years. I had developed a real affinity for the people and the events and the culture, if you will. So when I read this, I was extremely interested in it, that they were going to do a memorial. And it just hit me. What does that mean? What kind of memorial is it going to be? And at the time, Commander Bagby, this was before Bob Slaughter moved into chairman of the committee. Back then, it wasn't a foundation; it was just a committee. And he was mentioned in the article, Commander Bagby, very nice gentleman, very prim and proper, and very typical Navy. And anyway, I got to know him. But anyway, I wrote him a letter, and I just told him if I really like the idea, and if he needed any architectural assistance, I'd be glad to donate my services. I just to have an opportunity to rub shoulders with some really great people. So anyway, I didn't think anything about it, and about 2 months later, Commander Bagby called me and said that they had the letter and had reviewed it with some of these other committee members, and they would like to have me come to one of their meetings. And so that's how it all started out, really. That was in 1990.
Yeah.
It was either late 89 and 90 anyway. And that started a 4-year association, or excuse me, a 9-year association with the, 11 years, excuse me, because it ended with the dedication really in 01. So
that's right.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so it was 11 years.
Mm-hmm. Our guest is Byron Dickson, who is the architect who actually designed the National D-Day Memorial, this beautiful memorial we all, know so well now. It comes out of his incredible mind to make this happen. And by the way, he's also written a book about the whole odyssey
You're
of this
kind.
D-Day Memorial, Evolution of an Idea. Really fascinating book, Byron. So,
well, thank you.
From my standpoint, as an historian coming at this later, coming to the memorial well after it's done, and seeing what it means and what it's grown into now after 25 years, where I kind of come at this is I'm just like, where did you begin as an architect in terms of designing something like this? How did you come up with these ideas that are really staples now of what we know as the memorial? How does it all start in your mind?
Well, at first, getting to know the people and the mission, and then at first I thought all they were talking about was perhaps maybe like a tombstone in a garden somewhere. That was going to be the commemorative. And then after talking to them, they, like all good soldiers, it didn't take long for them to elaborate on my fundamental ideas. And so it grew into what it is today. But actually, as you probably know, the first effort was in Roanoke. And somehow I sort of unofficially, someone within the city orb had mentioned maybe putting it on Mill Mountain. As you probably, in the book, it's in the book. You know, in fact, some pictures of the effort. The actual architectural composition on Mill Mountain was larger than what we have today. I mean, it grew from this small little commemorative to a big building and so forth. Of course, once the city fathers found out what we planned to do on Mill Mountain, it didn't take long for you nixed that idea. But no, the first thing I did was to try to figure out what they wanted to do, and they had a lot of ideas, and we sort of synthesized that down to three things. a lot of things happened in threes on this job. But the three things we were going for, number one, we wanted to commemorate, because we knew that there were three phases actually of commemoration. There were those veterans who actually made the invasion, still alive then. I think a few of them still alive today.
There are a few.
Not many, but
Not
there
many,
are.
but we do
There
have
are
a
some.
few.
There's a few. It's dwindling. And then that was the first phase of the commemoration. The second phase was a period which we're into now, which is the families and close friends and descendants of those people who made the sacrifice on D-Day. And they come back, I'm sure, to remember and place flowers and whatever they need to do. And that group will probably last for another, I don't know, maybe 50 years or so. And then we drift into that historical phase, similar to like Civil War battlefields today. Appomattox is not too far down the road, and that's a good example of a historic event. No soldiers are left, no families are left, a few maybe remote descendants, but basically you go there for a history lesson, or you're a buff, you're a Civil War buff. But those were the three phases: was the soldiers, their families, and then the general public's interest in the event. So that's where the first of the three considerations, commemoration. That's where it started from. Then we went the next number two in terms of what we wanted to achieve was education. That was number two, and we wanted to be able to tell the story. And I think that was one of the more successful phases of our program was the education, which you did. You've been key. April has been key, and of course you brought the master historian on here.
That's right.
So you got a real team. I doubt with any other memorial in probably in Virginia has a team as qualified as the foundation's team today. So yes, so education was check mark. We got that covered. And the last and somewhat controversial program directive was entertainment. We wanted it to be entertaining in the sense that it wasn't just some dull collection of artifacts.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted the people who come there to go through an experience.
They had to be engaged.
And
right.
that has really, and we didn't even think about it at the time we were putting this together. It has sort of morphed into what is the great program that you have, where you have docents or whatever you call your
tour guides,
who take the people and they have carts. I think they can take handicapped people.
Absolutely.
Incidentally, the memorial is totally handicap accessible. All, let's say 26 acres of the actual development. The whole project started off on 88 acres. I don't know whether you'll still have all of the property.
Not quite 88 now, but we it is all ADA accessible. We make sure that, and that's a genius that you all made sure of, Byron. So it's a very gentle site with slopes, and it's just easy for people.
Well,
to get around.
believe it or not, we took 28 feet off the top of the hill.
Well, it was quite the hill.
It was quite the hill. And it was I don't know whether getting involved or stepping on any toes of the agenda here, but going back to the Bedford story, Roanoke had turned down 2 attempts to put it there in Roanoke City. And then we were in the process of giving what money we had to Roanoke College, thinking maybe they could take a little garden and maybe go back to the single stone type that they originally started with, or I thought they were starting with. So anyway, the city felt bad, of course, about not being able to. Some of them did, some of them didn't. There's a large part of the leadership of Roanoke didn't want it. Not in a derogatory motivation, but they just weren't ready to bring in all these people they thought it would attract. Their vision of what we were going to do was kind of bigger than ours was. But anyway, so we were ready to give the small accumulated donations to Roanoke College. We hoped maybe we'd have enough to maybe endow a chair on, I forget how they phrased it, Northern European invasions of the 20th century.
Oh, wow.
There's going to be a chair there. And I remember Dr. Kring and Jim Harkness was he was the comptroller at the time for the college. And we had one meeting with them. They weren't all that hot about it, but they weren't, they just said, well, we want to hear more. And this was in the early spring of '94, and we were coming up on the 50-year anniversary of the event. And Roanoke, as they do often, they are going to have a celebration, and generally it's down in Lee Plaza there, where they close off the area around Green Memorial Church and provide chairs and so forth, and had a pretty good crowd. And they announced it, and they invited General Rawson.
He was incredible.
You just don't
He's
know
a
how
legend.
incredible.
Yeah.
He was amazing.
Yeah.
I told him at one time, I said, my father's been dead. My parents have been dead for a few years now. And I said, if you're ever in the mood and want to adopt somebody, I'm available. He's the most dynamic individual, most complete public person I've ever known in terms of honesty, integrity, and knowledge. And I can tell you stories that I won't get into that. But anyway, he was invited by the city to give the address. At the time, there was only the 66, I believe, 4-star generals that had come through the Army. But he was a 4-star general, retired. And I understand he retired here because of the excellent medical facilities in the area. We do have a major veterans facility here. And he bought a home over on Turnberry, and he and his lovely wife lived there. He played a little golf there, had a golf course next door. And anyway, he was a terrific guy. But anyway, he accepted the offer for the presentation memorial address. And so it was announced probably 2 or 3 weeks ahead of time. They started playing it up on the radio and so forth. And they set up a podium there in Lee Plaza. That's right across from City Hall, between City Hall and the old post office and Green Memorial on the other side. And then they closed off the streets. And I guess they had seats for probably a couple thousand people, really. A lot of people came. Anyway, but as fate would have it, and as custom played into this scenario, Bedford at the time, the Elks Home, was primarily veterans at the time. I think that's changed. I haven't kept up with them, but anyway, they brought 2 busloads of veterans from the Elks Home, and along with them came Mayor Shelton and some other dignitaries there from Bedford, and they sat through General Rawson's presentation, and General Rawson, I tell you, I think he embarrassed the city. After everybody was sitting there saying, "Oh my God, what is he getting into?" He came down hard on Roanoke for not, really making the effort to accommodate the memorial. He felt that because he was a retired soldier, and he felt it needed some sort of municipal association and support, and Roanoke just wasn't giving it at the time. And so as time went by, well, he gave the presentation, and we all went back home. And a couple of weeks later, I guess it was Bob, got a phone call from Mike Shelton, who he said they had attended, and they had appreciated what General Rawson had said. And, oh, by the way, we have a couple sites here that you might be interested in. And then he gave us, he reminded us of the Bedford boys, and he explained how Bedford had more of a right to have it than Roanoke had it. He was a very forceful salesman. So what he did, he invited us down to look at 2 sites, the site where the president is located, and then there was a site on a farm on down the road there, same road. What is it, 21?
122.
122 probably.
You go on down about a mile, and there was another farm that was available.
Yeah.
You probably know where that was. I didn't know. We went down there and looked at it. It just it wasn't much to see. A bunch of cows, and that's about it. And then the one that we're on now, this the one in Bedford, was what was left over from the elementary school when they purchased the land for the school. And all of that land back of the school, which was up on the hill, you can still see the hills. The cliff is still there. There's a palisade that runs along there. And Mike Sullivan said, well, you can have this. It's what's left over if you want. And so we said, well, let's look at it. So we came up and walked it. We were walking around, and a few of us even walked all the way to the top of the hill, which is about where the arch is today. Maybe a little bit in front. Maybe the Lady of Trevier. Maybe that's about where the property ended. And there was a cattle fence along there, an old barbed wire fence, and half of it was falling down. And there was General Rawson, Frank Caldwell, our civil engineer, myself, and Bob Slaughter. We were up there looking at it. We weren't overly impressed with the amount of land that was left over. And so one of the four of us somehow said, let's walk on up to the top of the hill. And so we stepped on the barbed wire carefully and went over the fence and walked all the way to the top of the hill. Well, it was just amazing. It was like the surface of a basketball, and it was just perfect. And you could see we were I don't know how the foliage was, but you could see through the foliage. You could see downtown Bedford. You could see the spires of the church from there. And on the other side, looking more to the northwest, you could see the Peaks of Honor. And so, it probably was General Austin. He was a large part of the motivation for the site. I think he said, well, this would be perfect if we could get a hold of it, So everybody agreed. Now, where do we go from here? Well, Frank Caldwell, the civil engineer, said, well, I could go back and pull the plats from the records from the deeds, and I can find out who owns it. And it was fortunately it was owned by two families, and I won't go into the negotiations for that, but let's just say in the end, the foundation acquired the property, 88 acres, and we got to the top of the hill. And then we went to work, and we started off again. Here comes a series of three phases. The first phase was to clear the area and put in a road up there. That was the first phase, and that was mostly engineering, stormwater control, all that goes into making the property useful. Getting the rocks out, the trees disposed of, all the bark and so forth, and cleaning it up. And the end of that phase, there's a picture in the book where they have the two telephone poles, and of course there they have the blue-gray 29th Division motto. Let's go, I believe.
Let's go.
29, let's go.
29, let's go.
It's in the book. And anyway, that was the end of phase one. And we had no money to go really beyond. That's the only thing that held up doing it all at one time. There wasn't enough money for it.
That's right.
So then we started, the money acquired started to come in, and we started to isolate some, really identify some really capable donors. So phase two, we had enough to go ahead with the arch. And phase two was, it took us from where we were with the site work, and it did the upper plaza was done, and everything, the middle plaza and the lower plaza were not even started. They were still rough graded, and that was in 2000. That's when Bob Goodlad came up and broke his ankle when he slipped in the rain.
That was not one of our shining, but
Yeah, well,
I felt really bad.
Local congressman.
That's right.
he still laughs
That's
about
right.
that.
He does.
incidentally.
He does.
And he's
got
a wonderful supporter.
great sense of humor.
I see him every now and then, and I ask him, I said, "How's your ankle?"
Well, and like-
Byron, can I ask, because I
Sure.
know our listeners will be interested in this, who was Jim Brothers?
Yes, to talk about Jim.
Oh boy, he was one of the most colorful artists I've ever known. Really.
Colorful
He was-
artist. Who would have thought?
He was an incredible artist. Yeah.
Well, the story with Jim all starts with Leopold Galleries, who somehow, and I'm not really sure, it may have been a contact that it was made by some of the foundation people or something, but anyway, the association with them led us to several artists, and we interviewed I think 3 or 4 that they recommended. Brothers had a terrific. He had done the Eisenhower statue. I believe it was in the Capitol.
Yeah, that's
one
correct.
Of, one of his
Mhm,
works.
mhm.
He was terrific artist, and he came on board. He did all of the sculptural work up until his death, and except for one piece, and that is the final tribute that's underneath
It
the.
was Matt Kirby.
Matt Kirby
Right.
did that, and he selected Matt.
Right.
And to be honest with you, I think Jim helped him quite a bit with that. I just know Jim was involved with him in that. Matt is a good sculptor too, but a terrific guy. Really was. He was kind of more conventional than Jim, but anyway, Jim was he was quite a guy. And one of the most significant pieces, the one there at the waterfall, the climbing the
Scaling the wall.
scaling the wall.
That's right. It's an incredible piece.
It is an incredible piece. He did that whole piece horizontally.
Mhm.
There's a picture of it in the book
Yeah.
of where he worked on. He had to work over top of it, and he was on some kind of a gurney or forklift or something. He actually worked on top of that long. What is it, 28 feet long, something like that.
Yeah, it's
Massive.
I remember.
He never saw it
Huge.
until we lifted it up that day off the truck. He never saw it vertically until they lifted it up to put it in place.
What was his reaction?
I don't really remember, except he never expressed any disappointment with anything. He loved D-Day.
That had to have
Oh,
been
he
a
did.
relief to see it
He
actually.
said, he was, and it was, his vision for it. He had a vision that was generated by the architecture that was going to support it.
Right.
So he knew what he could do, and he went to work with that, and he managed to translate his vision into what we have today, only he did it horizontally.
Mhm.
And then when he got it up, it was perfect.
It was beautiful. And
It
I
is,
remember
yeah.
that day. I think the
Yeah.
biggest concern was, okay, hurry up and get this thing in place, because it had these massive bolts from inside
Yeah.
the bunker
Yeah.
to put it in place.
Yeah, it was
It was
quite
a-
a
quite a
job
feat.
getting it in.
It was a
getting it in place.
crane, huge crane
Yeah.
lifting it over. So
Anyway, Brothers was he was quite the guy, and I treasure the time I spent with him. Really,
Yeah.
I'll never forget Jim Brothers. Really,
But you and I have chatted before, Byron, about the items that he was actually collecting for the authenticity and making sure that he was getting the details right in these sculptures. So could you tell us a little about that?
oh well, he went to no ends to acquire artifacts of the time, and all of the equipment that you see on the soldiers that he sculpted was modeled after actual pieces that he was able to acquire. And he was very concerned about it being totally accurate, really, even down to the chin straps on the, the position of the sliding adjustment factors on the chin straps. He fretted over that. He was quite the guy, really. It was just such a fortunate circumstance that we acquired him, and it's so many things went together to make this memorial great.
and I was going to say, there's so much talent.
It seemed everything came together, a perfect storm, so
That's
to speak.
That's right.
And we were just tickled to death with it. But I don't know whose question I'm answering, but
Well, it's just a good conversation, and I think I'm curious when we talked about Bob earlier. So Bob Slaughter, who was we kind of credit as the founding of the memorial, really getting this idea going. But did you and Bob and other veterans, as you walked through and were creating this image, because you went to France,
yes,
and
did you go on that trip too?
I did not. I did not go on that trip, but I'm curious, just what did they tell you about what they wanted people to take away from their visit, and at what point did you realize early on? Because when people visit the memorial, there's obviously a feeling that you leave with, and it seems very intentional that you wanted to create that in the architecture of you're leaving with this feeling, not just what it should look like, but that people are being emotionally touched. I mean, when were you thinking through that as you in this process of designing the memorial, and when you were in France?
Well, yeah, it falls under the rubric there of the three things we wanted to do: commemorate, educate, and then entertain.
Mm-hmm.
Bob, I would say Bob's whole motivation of getting involved in this was to somehow honor the soldiers, particularly those that had been the ones that had been lost in the invasion, and their families, and then the survivors too. He was big on that. I mean, he would he would do anything for these people, and all along. In fact, that's what really motivated the timeline, really, because I forget the exact phrase, but I remember someone calculated how many of the actual soldiers that had made the invasion, how many of them we lost each year, who aged out on us. So that was sort of the battle cry, we got to get this built for the people so those that are still alive can experience how much we appreciate the sacrifice. And that was really his motivation. Bob would be the first one to tell you he wasn't an architect. He sort of let us, and that was the nice thing about the project. The foundation never really imposed any criteria on me to use in the articulation of the various components. We sort of worked that out ourselves. Several moments I was proud of. One of I'm most proud of is the fact we resolved the parking situation. Because once we wrote the program and we defined what we felt would be the normal visitation, how many people would have to be accommodated, buses and all that, and where we put them and so forth.
School buses.
School buses. Well, school buses, we have a couple places, I think, up there for buses, but they're
still coming.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah,
but they're
every day.
Well, they can drop off, and they can always go down to the unfinished area down there at the ticket booth and park after they unload.
That's right.
So if they want to park alongside there. But I remember in the beginning, before there was a whole lot of thought given to what we do with them. When they showed up, they actually parked around where you drive up and turn at the top. There was buses would park along that before they actually entered the major grounds of
that's right.
But anyway, I guess in keeping with the perfect landscape we were dealing with, the top of the basketball. I don't know at what point in time, I can't remember, but it just evolved. That's in the book, The Evolution of the Idea.
Right.
We said, well, why don't we, first of all, we have to have a circle, and why don't we park on the circle? So we did some calculations. I think we got 216 parking spaces around and some motorcycle spots that we had to come back and put concrete down because in the summertime, the kickstands would go down in the guitar. But anyway, that was to get away from the large, ugly parking lots. I despise parking lots, really. And, we do a lot to make them habitable or pleasing, if you will. We plant them, we try to landscape them and so forth, but you still can't get away from an expanse of asphalt that's it's just, I don't know. And anyway, it would be counterproductive to a memorial that was focused on an event that happened, really back before we had large parking lots, I suppose.
Right.
But anyway, we did get the parking around the circle, which that really eliminated the problem. And of course, it gives us a few more venues to work into what you're doing now. For instance, the landing craft is on the circle, but it's not in the circle, but it's on the circle. It couldn't be there if we didn't have the circle,
Right.
obviously.
That's correct.
Right.
So it's space.
Well, thank you
and,
for
exactly.
there was at one time, right after the dedication, the next project we were during the last phase prior to dedication. The book describes the education center.
Yeah.
So we actually had put that out for bids. We had taken bids on that. Jim Baldwin was he was grounds director. He passed away just recently. He was a great bagpipe player. Anyway, he during his tenure, we were focused on a bus drop-off point where I guess what eventually the visitor center was used for. They were dropped off there, but there was going to be a place, a dedicated building, a spot where all of the buses were unloaded. They could buy their tickets or whatever they wanted there. It's kind of a visitor's welcoming point. And that was going to happen right down at the bottom end, right across from the Eisenhower gazebo that was going to be there on the other side, on the outside of the circle. And that was a nice project, really. And Jim's Baldwin's envision was that the buses would stop there and unload everything, and then they would drive off. But that never happened either. So, but anyway,
We continue to grow.
They continue to
grow. That's right.
well, heck, maybe some other type of transportation. We might have transporters.
You
Who
never
knows?
know.
No, you really never know. But you ask him, aside from the parking area, part of my assignment was to figure out how we put all this together, and we divided it up again. We have the theory of three. We were going to have an area of the memorial which had to deal with the time of the event, and of course the time was defined by the date of the event. So the architectural style that was in vogue at the time was Art Nouveau, and even all of the detailing and it's kind of subtle, only an architect would probably recognize it, but all of the forms and edges and transitions on the arch are done in Art Nouveau detailing. So that was it. It was on an arch. An arch is not a building, and Art Nouveau was probably more found or represented by construction of a building as opposed to an outdoor feature like the arch. But we did what we could. That was the time, and then the place. The place was Northern Europe, and after researching memorials in that area, we went all the way back to the Roman time. And the Arch of Titus, which is pictured in the book, that kind of crystallized our thinking on the form of the major commemorative, and then the third was the actual event, and the arch, as you know, has the attic, has the five alternating black and white stones, which pick up the call it logo or whatever the
invasion stripes.
Invasion stripes. All planes had it, and a lot of other things I think did too. But anyway, it's pretty much. It's really even some of the aircrafts really that were flown after that, deeper into a company. I noticed on some of the red tails that were accompanying the bombers deep over Europe in 44 or in 45 had invasion stripes on them. I don't know whether that was latest hangovers or whatever, but The invasion stripes started really with D-Day. And of course, any historians will tell you, anytime that those 5 stripes show up in their relationship as they are on the arch, a historian will tell you, oh, well, that's D-Day. That's and then of course we chose the code name Overlord to do it in gold, which is right above the arch. That's the code name for it. It was Operation Overlord. The sea operation was Operation Neptune, but we didn't work that in. We didn't manage to get that worked in.
You got a lot worked in.
Yeah.
A lot.
I mean,
a lot.
of the arch, that
was a strange occurrence. I really, it's kind of scary, really. When it was designed, and incidentally, one of the terrific minds that helped us with the design was General Rosslyn. He had a great sense of scale, proportion, texture, and color. And so in fact, he made some recommendations that we kind of worked with him. And so when the final design was produced and was on paper and it was brought to the foundation, I think it was still the committee back then, I don't remember. But anyway, somebody in the room there asked, well, how tall is the memorial, So I said, well, let me get a scale out. So I got a scale out of my pocket and put it on there. And I said, well, it's 44 feet, 6 inches. And somebody said, you're kidding me. I said, no, what's wrong? Well, you don't like that? Or is there something wrong with that? I said, well, the invasion was in 44 on June the 6th. How about that? And there was nothing planned. So much of that came about. I just have to believe that there was a guiding hand somewhere else that was working our ways anyway. And fortunately, whoever does guide the universe gave us Bob Slaughter, General Rosslyn, Jim Brothers. We had the perfect storm.
Amazing crew
really
out
did.
there.
Yeah, we did. And the events, the overall complex had, again, the theory of 3. We formed, and I didn't know this when I started out on this. The elements of the 29th Division went over to England in 42.
Yep.
And there were some soldiers that had actually prepared for this event for 2 years in England,
including Bob.
Including
Bob.
Bob. And so definitely, and as we got into this, we began to hear more about the experiences that these soldiers had in England. The English didn't like them all that much over there. I forget what the old saying. They were overpaid, oversexed, and over here.
Well, on that note.
Well, sadly, we've reached the end of our time with Byron Dickson.
No, we could go on forever.
I know.
We could. Byron, it's
Byron.
just an amazing pleasure to sit down with you. I mean, Byron is the architect who created this incredible memorial and stood with giants too, of course, Bob Slaughter and General Rosslyn. I want to mention just one very brief note about him. I know him through a different light. I had no idea he was involved in this, but he was actually, this shows his selflessness, by the way. He was with the 7th Infantry Regiment of the 3rd ID in World War II. So he was not in Normandy. He was in a different invasion of South France.
Italy, I believe, wasn't it?
And also in Italy before that. He was a young staff officer during World War II and really had a lot of experiences that was quite fascinating. And of course, his career was propelled by his excellent service in World War II. He was a 3-star general in Vietnam, a long career. But I just think it's amazing that he was such, a major player in this whole thing when he himself was not a D-Day veteran. It shows his commitment, I think, to other soldiers and understanding what it meant, and perhaps his relationship with Bob Slaughter and you. And just so I just wanted to add that as we close today. And again, Byron, it's just amazing to sit down with you today and hear all about where this came from. Just from those of us who go to the memorial and see it and are affected by it, I'm just telling you, it was mission accomplished.
Well, I tried to put all this in the book. It is in the book.
It's fascinating.
The book was a personal milestone for me because, believe it or not, I flunked freshman English.
Well, somehow you did all right eventually, because the book is called The National D-Day Memorial: Evolution of an Idea. It's by Byron Dickson.
Sometimes your stumbles early in life kind of lead you to emphasis on certain reformatory efforts. And one thing I have tried very hard to do is to learn to write and to spell. I mean, it's been a struggle, really. But when that book came out, I was really tickled to death. I just regret that I couldn't. I don't know why. He probably was dead by then. But I wanted to find my freshman English teacher.
I did it. Hey, and I will mention that the book is available on our website, store.dday.org, for anybody who's interested in learning about the evolution of an idea and how it all came about. It's really fascinating with all the historical pictures and the context and deeper dive.
And go to our keep going to our calendar of events, because this is our 25th anniversary year, so we want to have Byron to come up and do some book signings and maybe do a lecture this year. So just come on, watch our website for more details. We'll make sure we get Byron up there.
Well,
Just when he thinks he's done.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Cool book, and so much I didn't know. It was a great journey for me too. So yes, I highly encourage everybody to check it out. Well, you can email our team at podcast@dday.org. Again, that's podcast@dday.org. If you're enjoying our discussion on World War II and its lasting impact, please subscribe to this podcast, share it with your friends, rate it, leave us a review. Help us share the lessons and legacies of D-Day and World War II. Thanks for joining us, everybody, for this and the 99 preceding episodes. Take care.
Someone Talked is a production of the National D-Day Memorial Foundation, recorded at Media Squatch in Bedford, Virginia. The views expressed are not necessarily those of the foundation, studio, or sponsors. Promotional consideration for Someone Talked is provided by Framatome, an international leader in nuclear energy. Learn more at framatome.com. Explore the National D-Day Memorial, plan your visit, and learn more about our educational programming and upcoming events at dday.org. Join the conversation. Email our team at podcast@dday.org. So long from all of us at Someone Talked.